Welcome to Instruction Discussion, our weekly look at the latest topics and trends in education affecting schools here on Long Island and schools around the world. Whether you're a teacher, parent, or student, listen for tips and strategies to help you navigate the educational landscape. There's a bell. It's time to start today's Instruction Discussion on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Hello, I'm Kevin Boston Hill, and welcome to Instruction Discussion, where each week we'll examine a recent trend or development in education and its impact on Long Island. We all know the importance of an education. The big fight now, however, is value versus cost. Many people do not feel the cost of higher education carries the same value it once did. What's more is the notion that many careers can be attained without a college degree. Even with the prevalence of these ideas, many people still see higher education as the best path to success, and they continually seek alternative ways to get there. This is where NAF comes in. Understanding the need to help students in marginalized communities gain the skills necessary to succeed in today's work environment, NAF has established academies across the country to bring schools and businesses together and build upon the traditional CTE approach. As a result, NAF academies boast a 99% graduation rate, with 88% of graduates planning to go on to college. To tell us more about NAF and discuss the overall impact the academies have on our communities, today we welcome Brooke Rice, Vice President of Work-Based Learning, and Courtney Savoia, Assistant Director of Communications. Ladies, welcome to Instruction Discussion on 90.3 WHPC.
Thank you so much for having us, Kevin.
How did NAF start and what was the purpose?
Yeah, absolutely. So over 40 years ago, our founder, Sandy Weil, who some of you may know from Wall Street and Citigroup, and a great philanthropist and finance, advocate in our community here, really looked at his workforce and was seeing a gap and like, how are we getting people in the doors? How are we getting the people we need to work? And at the same time, he'd leave his office and he would see high school age students just hanging out, and like, how do we kind of bridge that gap? How do we help the students who are just, disengaged with school? How do we get them engaged through the lens of a career? And how do we get them prepared? And how do we get businesses the talent that they need? So he started with the New York City Department of Ed over 40 years ago. And since that one academy was started, an Academy of Finance, we have grown to over 600 academies serving over 112,000 students nationally across 35 states and territories. And it's really been a remarkable journey. I've been at NAF for 10 of those 40 years. So we've done a lot of amazing work to really prepare students to be future ready.
And over that time, how does NAF or NAF, as you call it, how does it get into the schools? How does it, get its notoriety out there for people to recognize it? Yeah,
absolutely. So I think, a lot of the work that we do kind of speaks for itself. We have some, branding and stuff like that, but typically it's through school districts coming to us saying that they'd like to partner with NAF. They would like to create a career academy and want our help, our support, our tools, our resources to be able to implement those programs. And so we do that, over several years with those academies to really develop those ecosystems of support. But sometimes it's often through, businesses who come to us and say, we want to develop a skilled workforce. And we would like to work with, community or schools within our communities where we have employees. And how do we kind of create this opportunity for students to engage with us as a employer? So we kind of look at it from a couple of different ways of how we get engaged with those schools.
And I guess if a student or if a family wanted to get involved, do they have to be a part of a school to get involved, or can homeschool students also become involved with NAF?
So I think that's what's great kind of about us. I mean, with our educational design, the career academy model that we have, those are, students can just decide that they want to be part of that and sign up to be part of a NAF academy that's already kind of being established. If you don't happen to live in one of those areas, though, We have a ton of resources online of like how to do work-based learning. We have a new digital tool called NoPro, which is authentic project-based learning from real employers that's open to any high school student across the country, whether they are in homeschool, charter school, public school, private school, wherever they are, they can still participate in work-based learning and get really great mentor feedback through the platform on developing that project and developing their skills. So we have a lot of different ways to engage.
Oh, excellent. And with all of those different ways, how about if they're part of an after-school program or a community-based organization? Can they get involved through that as well?
So I think, like I said, like the career academy design is really meant to be implemented in we work with traditional high schools, we work with charter schools to implement that academy design and really kind of the ecosystem around it. So the advisory board of industry professionals who can help shape the work-based learning opportunities and the curriculum for the students within those schools. But if you are outside of the NAF Academy, there's all of the resources that we have. So we have some after-school clubs who will use some of the resources that we utilize, that we offer for free, that are publicly available out there on our website. And they can use that to really enrich and improve their curriculum and their offerings to support student development.
And what is the application process like to get into a NAF Academy?
Yeah, so when we partner with schools, we go through what's called a year of planning. And that may sound like a lot to some people, but having been in education for most of my life, I think it's a really intentional first step to make sure that everyone is on the same page. Everyone from the educators to the school and the district administrators, your industry advisory boards, students, parents, bringing everybody together and say, this is what we want. These are the type of goals and outcomes that we want for our students. And here's how we do them. And they do that with NAF support, our training, our resources to really help them achieve those goals.
So that's if a NAF Academy doesn't currently exist. That's what the process that a school or a organization would actually go through. But now, if I'm a student, how can I get involved in it? Is there an application process, or how do I select the particular academy that I may want to join?
Yeah, so it depends on where you're located. As I mentioned, we have over 600 academies throughout the country. So for Long Island specifically, we have about 800 students that we serve in the Long Island area through several academies, academies of finance and academies of information technology. So East Meadow, Northport, we're really embedded in those. We've been with those schools for a long time. They're doing some amazing programs. So if you're in one of those school districts where we currently have NAF academies, you just decide that you want to be part of that, and you let your guidance counselor or your educator know, and you can be part of that. And that's a critical piece of our design is we don't put limitations on enrollment. So there's no GPA requirement, there's no attendance requirement, because what we're really trying to achieve is helping students who are disengaged or don't really understand the purpose, or just, they know what they want to do, but they want some more experience in different career types to get that type of exposure through our academy design.
Now, I understand there are about 5 or 6 different academies or career pathways that are developed through NAF. So who decides which academy is going to be established in a particular area? Like, who decided that it was going to on the pathways that are in Northport and in East Meadow? Was it the schools themselves, or was it some type of partnership? How did that come about?
Yeah, so it's a local decision, and it's really looking at, what is your local economic situation? What kind of industries do you have in your community that can really serve as the employee base to get those industry professionals in? And where do you have workforce needs? So we have, as you mentioned, 5 main themes. So finance, IT, engineering, health science, and hospitality and tourism. Those are our 5 main themes, but we have a myriad of other themes that are needed in local areas. So we have law and public service academies. We have agriculture academies that are in, certain rural areas. So we have a lot of different themes, and it really is dependent upon that local kind of fit
And so if I'm a student who doesn't necessarily have an interest in doing the finance academy, I wanted to do something else that's not being offered here, how can I get involved with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's a really good question because, for the listeners out there and for you too, Kevin, if you remember back to, kind of go back to your 16-year-old self, right? And you've got people asking
that's going to take a while for me to get back there, but okay.
Yes, people are asking you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And that is such a hard, anxiety-ridden question to ask a teenager, right? There's a million other things going on in teenagers' heads. And then they have this weighty decision of what do I want to do for the rest of my life? It's a hard question. And so, even with our academy themes, if you have an NAF academy around you, even if it's not in the theme that you're interested in, I would still encourage students to be part of it because it really is, it operates as a small learning community. And while the curriculum, the career-connected curriculum is focused on a specific career theme, the opportunities, the work-based learning that happens are really student-centric. So if you are, you want to be a veterinarian, let's say, and that is your path, but there's only a finance academy theme in your area. Joining that finance academy theme can still be helpful in terms of helping you understand the finance components of what goes on if you're owning your own vet clinic or entrepreneurship and those types of concepts. But then the work-based learning, your job shadows, your internships can all be focused on your area of career interest.
Now, I mentioned in the open that NAF kind of takes the CTE model and really just runs with it and expands it out. So how is NAF different from your typical career and technical education program or school? Because again, out here in Long Island, we have our BOCES program out of the Joseph Barry complex. So how does NAF compare, or is it different from a regular CTE program?
Yeah, so I would say that NAF academies build on top of strong CTE programs. So if you think about career and technical education programs, so when I can give you an example, I was a teacher. I taught business and marketing education in high school for 10 years. And what I noticed about our program, we had a school store, we were doing our DECA chapters, students were competing in content related competitions, and we were doing a lot of great things, but maybe only 2 of our students were doing internships every year. And I may have some guest speakers, but I wasn't really incentivized or held accountable or encouraged or given the tools to support my industry partner connectivity to my students. And so what NAF does is we layer on those tools and resources to help make it easier for educators to incorporate work-based learning. And then for them to measure, how is this work-based learning helping support our students' aspiration, skills, and connections? And so we actually implemented a NAF academy in my district, and that's kind of where I fell in love with NAF as a whole. But I really just saw the change in our students. They were getting more work-based learning. I had a structured advisory board where industry partners knew how to interact with us as educators to really help ultimately impact our students.
Now, aside from the, supplying the internships and those work-based experiences for students, what type of input does the industry partners, what kind of input do they have or influence do they have on the programming itself?
A whole lot. They are really working hand in glove with the education side of the work. And that's where we really are emphasizing that ecosystem of support, because it really does take a village. If we're talking about economic development and community, it really is about all of the adults leaning in to support the next generation of its citizens. And so when we think about our advisory boards are there to help, co-design the academy itself. They give input on curriculum to say, we are not using this type of platform anymore. We need students to do this type of platform. Or, hey, we need students to understand AI. We need to have this type of skill. We notice this about our students. And there's a gap there, and we need to fill that gap. They're also the ones who decide what kind of work-based learning is going to be offered. So they're the ones that are directly coming and doing skills workshops with our students to help them learn like project management, or they're doing mock interviews with our students to help them prepare for, real interviews. And then they're also the ones providing internships. So it really is that ecosystem.
You are listening to Instruction Discussion on the Voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Kevin Boston Hill, and our guests today from NAF Academies are Brooke Rice, Vice President of Work-Based Learning, and Courtney Savoia, Assistant Director of Communications. Now, I like what you talked about as far as the input that they have, the work-based partners have, as far as this is what we see that's coming down the pike in our industry, and this is what we need to help in, and this is what you need to prepare your students for. When it comes to the internships, is there any numbers that we can point to? And I don't know if, Courtney, you may have these numbers as well, but are there any numbers that you can point to that show how many students who are in internships go on to get hired by those particular companies?
Yeah, so I can take a first stab at this, Courtney. Typically what we're talking about when we're talking about high school internships, there's not a big conversion rate between the internship itself and employability, because what that internship is designed to do at a high school level is to give the student a taste of like what's out there, what does this job look like in a day-to-day environment, what skills do I currently have, and what skills do I need to build up before I get into the workplace. So a lot of our students, I think you mentioned in your stat, about 88% choose to go to college after they complete their academy journey. And so they will often get college internships. So I think if you think about internships beget employment, that's kind of the pathway that we choose for our students. Now, that's not to say that that doesn't happen, because there are some schools or some students that you mentioned, there's so many choices out there now. Yeah. So whether you want to go into an apprenticeship, having the work-based learning before you get to the apprenticeship is really important, because you're not kind of signing up for something blindly. You're really understanding what kind of system that you're getting into, what kind of job this is. And then both the employer and the student are able to kind of go into that, understanding what the mutual benefits are of that type of program. Across the country, 2% of high school students get paid internships. Okay. 2%, which is a small amount, right? Yeah. We are at about 35% of all of our seniors get paid internships. And then the rest of those students will also get opportunities like mentored industry projects and other things, because a lot of our students, are coming from under-resourced or under-invested in communities where there are real barriers to internship opportunities. Everything from they don't have a car and there's no public transportation. And so getting to an internship can be difficult. Or they don't have the appropriate work authorization to work in the United States, which is an employer kind of barrier to payment. And so we have a lot of different ways to kind of overcome some of those challenges. And we've worked with our national partners and with our local advisory board partners to overcome some of that. And that's, again, like why we put out like NoPro, because that is an opportunity, a digital platform for students to develop some of the skills that they need and work on real, authentic industry-related projects with mentor feedback, which is a great kind of stepping stone and skill builder to get into some of those internships later on.
Talk to us a little bit more, because when I was looking into the whole NoPro and some of the other aspects that NAF does sponsor, I know, again, it helps students get really hands-on with the particular environment that they want to go into. So talk to us a little bit more about some of those other programs that NAF does have to offer.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we work with some of our national partners, everyone from, Verizon and KPMG to RTX, the Raytheon companies, to develop work-based learning programs, including internships that are provided to a lot of, hundreds of our students every year. So we work directly with those partners in supporting their internship programmatic build and implementation to do those types of programs. We also work with those national partners to do a lot of other work-based learning activities, everything from an internship expo, mock interviews, as I mentioned, job shadows, those types of programs. And then what we really, I think, pride ourselves on is the ability for us to work with our school districts and with their advisory board partners to help them build up their own unique kind of community feel work-based learning opportunities that they get to participate in.
The students who do select that they're going to go on to college and so forth, do we have any numbers on the types of colleges they go to or where those colleges are located? Do they tend to stay at home, or do they now go further away from home because of this experience that they have gained?
Yeah, so a lot of our data points show that they stay in state to go to post-secondary. A lot of times it is a 4-year college, but we do definitely see 2-year college. One of the things that has been really interesting for us as we kind of, we've been doing this for 40 years. We have, thousands and thousands of alumni who are part of our program, but, linking National Student Clearinghouse data, labor and wage data, this is something that we've tried to work really hard with our states that we're, kind of in to look at like what are the long-term implications of NAF Academy participation. And so we're just starting that process as states are getting more and more tech savvy with having all of that data in one centralized system. So we're excited to learn a little bit more about like what are those long-term outcomes for a larger population of our students, because we've done some like longitudinal studies, but those have been smaller sample sizes and we've seen some really great outcomes, but we want to know, what does this look like for all of the thousands of students that we've served over the years? I
know you said that there are academies in Northport and East Meadow, but are there plans of expanding, or are you waiting for the schools to kind of contact you to decide if you're going to go out into a particular area?
Yeah, so we kind of do both. We look at, what's kind of like right for growth for our design. And then we also look at, what schools are coming to us and are interested in being part of the NAF network. How
can students and families or even schools get involved? Where can they go to find out more information about what NAF has to offer? Yeah, so NAF.org is a great place to start. We have a lot of different, opportunities to get engaged there. So everything from finding out more, what kind of supports we can offer schools, that information is there. If you're a parent or a student and looking to learn a little bit more, not only about NAF, but looking to learn more like about NoPro, where you can do a project and compete for our prizes are like $10,000, which is crazy for students. So it's a great opportunity and a big plug for that particular program because it is free to use. And then, we also have information, and resources available for those who are not in NAF academies. If you're a community partner and industry partner in the Long Island area or beyond, you can also visit NAF.org and figure out where we can connect you to a local advisory board. You don't have to commit to being a part of the advisory board. You could just say, hey, I'd like to engage and I'd like to create impact for the next generation of, whatever careers. Or I'd like to help students, do well in interviews. You can volunteer for that through our site. Once students are involved, do they have to follow if they come into an academy, do they have to follow everything from soup to nuts that's involved in it, or can they kind of customize their program of study as they go through? And how long does a program of study usually last? Is it for the entire 4 years of high school, or can they do a year by year, or how does that work?
Yeah, so some schools have a 4-year program where students are going 9th through 12th grade and a part of the academy the whole time. Some of our programs are 3-year programs where they go to 9th grade, they kind of explore what is high school all about, and then they make a decision about what kind of theme and program that they want to be a part of. So it really can depend. But, academies are not one of those things where you're locked in for life. So if you get in it and you don't like it, you can always choose to opt out. Although the vast majority of our students have really come to feel like their academy is their family. And it's really building a network of connections for our students. And I think that's the biggest thing for me as we think about this. And I know, I think you had Miss Wingfield on your program talking about her book, Gray Areas.
Yes.
And she was talking about social capital and connections and how important that is. And, if you listen to that podcast, like 70 to 85%, depending on which research you're using, of jobs and internships come through people that you know.
Right.
And if we're not doing that for students who don't have connections to their family, who have jobs that they want and desire, going through the academy, where our intentionality is to help them make professional connections and to build their professional network. These are the things that really help level the playing field and really become an equitable driving force for us.
Courtney, I'm not going to let you get away with just sending me messages through the chat over here. I want you to actually go ahead and talk about these. So
absolutely. I just wanted to quickly just let listeners know that you can also find NAF on social media at NAF, NAF, Career Acads. That's where you can find us on social media. And then, as Brooke mentioned, for NoPro, our free digital work-based learning tool, we do have a website for that. It is nopro.org. That's KNOPRO.org. So just wanted to also plug those couple of additional resources for more information.
No, but I'm sure, because I'm sure a lot of our students actually get most of their information through social media anyway. Nobody goes to an actual website anymore. They usually get it through LinkedIn, not even LinkedIn, but Facebook or Instagram or X or whatever they're using. So they're more apt to go through that than to go to the actual website itself. They'll be linked into the website, but they'll already use one of those other sites first.
Oh, absolutely. And we can be found on Facebook, X, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
If you had to, I guess, leave our audience with one final thought about the importance of workforce readiness and what that can look like in our schools and in our communities, what would that thought be?
I would say the adults always make it harder than it should be. And I think, the research shows that high school should be a time to explore. It should be a time to help students identify, what their strengths are, what they value, where they want to go, what they want to do. And it really should be a safe place for students to explore that and really have a lot of opportunities to meet people in those fields and to practice their skills. And when we talk about the skills gap, although technical skills are always critically important, if you look at America Succeeds and the durable skills movement that they've started building, the research shows that durable skills, soft skills, future-ready skills, 21st century skills, whatever you want to call them, are the ones that are mentioned in more job descriptions, more job applications and postings, and is what's really critically needed. So if we can really focus on helping students master communication, collaboration, critical thinking skills, then we'll have well prepared them for what's next.
And I think that's where our educational system kind of fails our students, because we're so bent on preparing them for jobs that no longer exist, as opposed to for jobs that have not been invented yet. So thank you for coming on. We would definitely like to thank our guests from NAF Academies, Brooke Rice, Vice President of Work-Based Learning, and Courtney Savoia, Assistant Director of Communications, for coming on to our show today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Once again, my name is Kevin Boston Hill, and thank you all for listening to Instruction Discussion, right here on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.